Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I am here today with Jeremy Maher, the co-owner of Phoenix Home Remodeling in Chandler, Arizona. Welcome to Builder Stories, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Eric.
Yeah, excited to have you on. So why don't you just kind of give us your background? How'd you start, Phoenix Home Remodeling? How'd you get into construction? Just a little bit more about who you are.
Sure. So it's probably a little bit different than the average owner of a remodel company. I went through terrible contractor issues, and I would complain to my boss at the time. His name's Ben, and he was the director at Infusionsoft. And I would say very nice things like, I can't believe how bad these contractors are at doing their work. And he mentioned that his brother was a contractor in another state, in Illinois. And he mentioned how he had thought about starting a company with his brother, and maybe I could consult. And then once we all got together, we realized, it made more sense for the three of us to become owners together in the company. And so that's kind of how we got started and how I got into the construction industry. My background is more in tech, sales, marketing, processes. I'm kind of our tech dork here. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about us and how we got started.
Yeah, well, I probably share that tech dork title with you as well, except probably got a handful of them on the team. Definitely
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of them, actually, but man, that's interesting. So you're coming from slightly different kind of path than I guess a lot of the construction business owners that that I talk with. So background in sales, marketing, technology, kind of processes, like that really is very similar to how I got into it as well. My I had a software company before before this, and ended up taking over a construction company and kind of brought that same focus on, let's leverage technology, implement
Yeah.
processes, try to streamline things, be more efficient. So can definitely resonate with where you're coming from. But it's really interesting hearing you talk about kind of you also saw a huge opportunity with contractors not being organized, kind of just not really living up to what you had expected. And maybe you can kind of tell us just a little bit more about that. What did you specifically try to make sure that you didn't do with your company?
Sure. So try to do this in a way that doesn't badmouth contractors, because a lot of them, frankly, they're doing their best, and it's an extraordinarily difficult industry. I had no idea how difficult this was going to be.
Yeah.
With three owners, I mean, we talk sometimes and make jokes like, how do people do this on their own if they're the only owner? You could have a bunch of employees, but we have three owners and we each do our own silo, so I can't even imagine. So one thing I would say is our processes. I know that's boring. Nobody really wants to hear about that. But I'm extremely type A. And before we even started, we ironed out a lot of things like, okay, who's going to do what? How is this going to work? What's our company culture going to be like for employees and things of that nature? So that was a big part of it. Another one was our sales process. So I come from a sales background. My business partner, Ben, also does. And neither of us wanted to have any kind of pressure or sales. And there's a couple things that we do that understandably another contractor or remodeling company owner would shake their head at and say, we're not doing this correctly, which they probably are right. But that's just the way that we decided to do business. And it does make us maybe slightly different than maybe some companies.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, having a plan is certainly very, very helpful when going in. It sounds like you guys had that plan and that forethought to how do you want to set up and structure, the business. And man, I totally agree. Having partners, having, somebody to share that burden of being an entrepreneur is very helpful. I know a lot of times people, kind of sort of struggle to figure out how to create that partnership though. And, how do you navigate, if you got, two people or more, partners, that decision-making process. So, what does that look like for you guys? I mean, kind of what, maybe first, what are those, what are the sort of the different silos as you described it? Like what are each of your roles and responsibilities? And then how do you collectively make decisions?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first one is definitely trust. It helped out a lot that Ben had been my boss for 4.5 years. So we obviously knew each other well. We worked together, so it wasn't just a friendship. And that helped out tremendously. Obviously, he's got to be a good guy if I'm willing to partner with my boss. I mean, how many people want to do that? And probably vice versa too.
Yeah,
One of your employees. I'm sure there were times where he was frustrated with me if I wasn't doing exactly what he wanted. I don't know, but that could be another call. And then for Mark is Ben's brother. So I think there was just some inherent trust by having Ben in the middle, so to speak. So that helped out quite a bit. A big part of it, like you were asking about, is the silos. So anything involving the front end. So new prospective clients, our website, anything that involves software. The last time I looked, I have over 540 logins for our company. So that includes my logins, our employees. That doesn't include my personal logins. Anyone that uses software, as you can attest to better than probably most, it's a lot of work. So Ben and Mark don't have to deal with any of that. If our employees have any questions, they just come directly to me. And then Ben handles the project management, a lot of like the leadership aspects. He's really good with people, and he also handles the finances. And then Mark handles the actual clients with construction, our trade partners. During the feasibility planning and design phase, he helps out the designers with anything that can involve construction. So I have no idea what's going on their side, on either their side. They have no idea what's going on my side. And we like it that way because there's trust. We aren't wasting a ton of time doing different things. Um, and I don't mean to say what I'm going to say next in a bad way for anyone that can't do this, but imagine you're a homeowner and you have one person that's the bottleneck. And if they have to be in charge of all these things, there's so many problems that come up every single day with any kind of business. It's really nice to have those silos because it allows us to stay really focused. And it sounds weird, but not knowing what's going on the other one is actually quite peaceful. It reduces your stress, and it also makes it so that you can work on your silo a lot better so the customer gets a much better experience. So while having a partnership, in some ways, I think would scare some people off. If you can find someone who you trust, I think
yeah,
that goes a long way. Or at least like another company that maybe just takes over some aspect of that, such as marketing or whatever it may be.
sure. So how do you, I mean, do you guys meet and kind of have, leadership, meetings, and how, like what happens if, all three of you, want to go a different direction with something? Like who gets to have the final say here?
It's really weird how that works out. I don't know. I think one reason is that we're all very flexible and none of us feel like we know everything because it's not like we all worked at a design build company for years and it's like this is the way that you do it. And all three of us are very big into like researching and learning about something. Ben watches so many podcasts, it's incredible. He's always telling me about these new things and everything. And I think what helps is we all have an open mind and it's kind of like, all right, well, here's an idea. I don't have a strong ownership of that idea. He usually doesn't either. We might think, oh, this seems like the best route, and then we do it. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. We're also not risk adverse and we're very flexible. It reminds me of Tesla. We're nowhere near like Tesla. I don't want it to sound like that. But Tesla's known for being very agile. They make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
And we kind of feel the same way where, okay, let's try something and we can do it in a way that doesn't impact the customer journey. And let's see if it improves things or if it doesn't. So that's kind of like keeping an open mind and also maybe not making a huge change, but just tweaking something or adjusting it a little bit. And then the other one is asking employees. I don't know a lot about design. Ben and Mark, they aren't designers either. And so when we have a design question, we'd rather just go to our designer and say, what do you think? What do clients think with this? So it's kind of an open table, so to speak, I guess.
yeah, that makes sense. So maybe, tell us a little bit more. What's the rest of the team look like for you?
Sure. So we have 4 international employees that do a bunch of different things. One is our estimator, which is absolutely fantastic. Another one's a webmaster who helps with the website. That was the biggest game changer for me. If anyone is considering it, getting a webmaster, someone who handles all their website stuff, I would highly recommend it. That really helped me out quite a bit. And then we have a social media manager who essentially runs all the normal stuff you would expect with social media. And then we have a design assistant. So this is a role that is a bit unique, probably compared to most remodeling companies. So my understanding is the average design assistant is in the office, they're running errands, they're grabbing selections, they're doing different things for the designer. We do have one of those also. But this one specifically, their role is to upload things into Job Trend, do little things that are on the computer that could be done from anywhere. And that way our designer is more laser focused. We're very big on an assembly line style. Like we don't
Hmm.
want, we have 2 designers, one's brand new. So we have one full-time designer and about to be a second full-time designer. We don't want that designer doing anything but design. We don't want them being the salesperson, even though we don't really have a salesperson, but consultant. We want the consultant only doing what they do, helping clients come on board. And so it's one of those processes where it's just very, it's boring, but it's kind of like an assembly line. Each person
Yeah.
has just their own job. And it's similar to the 3 owners with the silos. Let's not worry about what someone else is doing unless it impacts the customer journey. We just focus on what we need to, which means less problems. And that position actually runs a lot better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, once you win the job though, like what about project management and kind of the operational aspects of, manage all the trade partners? And I know you said it sounds like Mark maybe serving in that role. Is that right?
Oh yeah, sorry. So I didn't finish with your earlier question. So essentially, we have a project manager who is underneath Ben and Mark, and he's got, I think it's like 30 years of experience doing this. So he handles a lot of that. We also have in-house tile people. So we have 3 that are just incredible. As you probably know, shower tile work is a bit risky,
Yep.
and especially in Arizona with hard water and some other challenges. And we have an office manager who helps out with ordering. And we have Justin, who is our phone consultation employee, who essentially does a phone call for every single new lead that comes in to see if they're a good fit. And then we move them to the in-home visit with the consultant. We have a couple things to do there that's a little bit weird and a little bit different, but it works well for us. And then from a project management standpoint, I mentioned the production person, carpenter, and then we like to use trade partners for electrical, plumbing, of course, glass fabrication and countertop fabrication. And then the majority of the other things are in-house.
Yeah. Well, sounds like you got a really, stacked team over there, very well thought out. And everyone's got a very specific role and kind of function that they serve, and that assembly line. I mean, that really is a great way to think about it there.
Yeah, and then we have another employee that I don't want to slip my mind. His name's Aaron, and he does an amazing job of being kind of a jack of all trades, where he does a ton of demo, running around, helping with errands, things that come up last minute. He's kind of like a go-to guy to just be able to handle so many different things. So we've been very lucky with the teammates that we've been able to find and cultivate.
Man, so I guess and when did you start this again? You said 2017.
2017. Yeah. I mean, we started it a little bit before with planning and everything, but officially 2017. And then the first year, I made a mistake. As you probably hear in business, they say, hey, make sure you niche down. So try to be as specific as you can. And we started in the senior access ADA space because Mark had a lot of previous experience in that. And while it works great, it's not enough for to grow a company, even in the area of Phoenix, Arizona. So then we just expanded to being bathrooms and kitchens. So that's when we really took off, was once we made that change.
Yeah, no, that Definitely got to find that right kind of balance between having, a very focused, like, doing something really well, versus having enough, opportunity to keep growing and scaling that business. And yeah, certainly, I think kind of getting in the little bit broader remodeling space of the kitchen, the bath inside is, probably gives you a whole bunch more opportunity there.
Yeah, a much bigger opportunity. And then one other thing that might help some people out there, and they might also think we're crazy, is we're talking about more opportunity. So the way our process works is we actually have, this isn't different. We have somebody do the phone call. I mentioned his name's Justin. And at that point, if it's a good fit, he actually creates a scope of work once they schedule their in-home evaluation. Our consultant goes to the house. There's no sales at all. There's nothing for the homeowner to sign. He essentially is using a checklist to make sure that we catch everything. Otherwise, as you know, it's common for the price to go up. So we want to make sure that we get everything we possibly can. And then from that standpoint, he submits it to an estimator. And I know most groups I'm part of, they say this is ridiculous. It's a waste of time and money. The estimator is in-house. Job trend's easy. It's quick. You guys have templates. It's not difficult to do. And we pay her way more than what she would make at another company. But if I had to make it up, it's roughly 1/6 or 1/7 of what we would have to pay someone here. So it works for everyone. Then the homeowner actually gets a real proposal that's been built out with pricing catalog and everything. And this is before they even decide to move forward with us. So there's not a ton of time or money involved to do this, but it gives the homeowner a real number. And then from that point, this is going to sound crazy. We actually email the proposal to the homeowner. Um, Coming from a sales background, I know you should be in front of them. You can kind of see their objections, get a better idea of what might be slowing them down from moving forward, answering questions. And when we made the switch, because we used to present in front, the conversion rate didn't change. Homeowners were just as happy, if not more happy. It gave them more time. There was no pressure. And so we've been told, I can't even tell you how many times, that this is a terrible idea. And I get where they're coming from. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do this or should, but it is something that has allowed us to have more opportunities where I would guess roughly our consultant saves 2 hours, maybe 3 hours per
Sure.
person that we send a proposal to if you add drive time in. So, and the homeowner then also has the ability to ask questions that they may not come up with in that 1 hour window when they just saw the proposal. And now they're put on the spot to try to come
Yeah.
up with every question and concern. And do they want to move forward? Do they not? So even though it's an odd type of scenario, it might provide more opportunity for some companies out there if they want to give it a shot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have seen the full gamut of, different kind of strategies for how do you handle, that everything from that initial, the lead comes in, what happens next? I mean, it sounds like you guys are calling them, you're having that initial phone conversation, you're scheduling the on-site. I see a lot of times where people will that in that initial phone conversation kind of go, try to, get all the details, be able to, get to the point where they can turn around, either, a ballpark estimate, or turn around some sort of a paid, design agreement or some sort of a, get some sort of skin in the game at that point.
Mhm.
I've seen people who don't ever want to go out to the job site, before, they've got something in place. And, sounds like you're though, you're going out there, you're building that relationship, you're really coming armed with insight about what they may be looking for and can really be very prepared. And then you take that back. And, again, I think, it's very important that every company out there really figures out, what is right for you and for your sales, strategy, and how do you like to, work that relationship and work that sale. And, it sounds like you guys have really kind of, honed in on what works well for you and have looked at your conversion rates. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, more power to you for being able to kind of figure that out and find, what works.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. One other thing that might be helpful is when you're talking about the consultant being prepared, the admin manager, Justin, who does the first call, once they schedule the in-home, he creates that scope of work, but he also takes photos that the homeowner uploads and gives
Mhm.
us, and he makes a video for the consultant explaining what they want to do. and the consultants really like it. I think one reason is just confidence. You know, you walk into someone's house, you've already seen it. You already know what they want to do. And then it also gives them the ability to think of any questions or concerns that they might have before the meeting.
Yeah.
And the homeowner also likes it because they're not starting from scratch. It's not like, oh, so what do you want to do in here? Can just jump right in. He kind of goes through his checklist, and the meeting's a little bit better for the homeowner. So from a prepared standpoint, it's just, Loom is the name of it,
Yep.
right? And it's easy to use. And so he just creates a 5-minute video, and that 5 minutes makes such a difference for the consultant. So that crossed my mind as something that
Yeah.
might be helpful.
No, that's we use Loom as well internally here. I mean, our support team actually, and our customer success team, a lot of times, when we get inbound, questions or inquiries about things like our team will actually just, instead of sitting there writing a step-by-step instruction and all sorts of detail that it's gonna take them a while to write. It's gonna take the person on the other end, they're gonna have to pull it up and read it and go to, like, they just record a quick Loom video. And like we have just had raving, reviews of how awesome it is that, like, we're like, showing you and telling you and kind of giving you that experience right there. I mean, it's been a game changer for us. But I think one of the other really great things about that process for you though is, and I try to encourage people, to do this, is like always capture, documentation, photos, videos of where it is from the very beginning before you've done anything, and then also obviously along the way as you're doing work and then your finals. But like so many times I see that, contractors, they don't have the befores, and so, whether that could be useful for marketing later, or whether that could be useful for, trying to work through some sort of communication challenge that you may have had about the project, or maybe, and again, I've seen this like so many times, like, there could be a situation where you get blamed for something that you might not have had anything to do. It could have been a pre-existing issue or condition, like, capturing as much of that information, that documentation up front is just, a very, very good best practice that, I try to encourage people to always do.
Absolutely. We had the same issue, even just something simple as the before photos, like you mentioned. And so what I did was for myself, when I was the consultant, at the bottom of the scope of work of each room in capital letters, it would say, Jeremy, do not forget to take before photos. Now, can I drive back there? Absolutely. But what happens if I don't have a good checks and balance system for if I don't have the before photos? And for homeowners to be able to see, like, what did you do and what did you not do? That's one of the best ways they can judge your work, at least quickly. And so we set that up, and then we have, as you know better than anyone, you can use Job Trend to keep all the progress photos in one place. So if the homeowner ever asks, like, hey, can I see the before photos, or a lot of other simple things that normally it's like, okay, what folder did I put that in? Is it on my phone? Is it on my computer? It's like, no, it's just right here. Go ahead and look in your little portal right there, and you can see it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it helps out quite a bit.
So one question I was going to ask though, like, a lot of times, and when you kind of think about that initial customer experience all the way through, it sounds like you may be having more, kind of interactions with various people within your organization. So like, has it ever or how do you kind of handle that? You're building more relationships, with that homeowner. How do they know who to contact for what and for when? Like, does it ever, do they get into the project and then end up wanting to, kind of go back to that first person, Justin, maybe, or to that, consultant, or, like, how do you kind of manage who is going to be the point person at each one of those stages?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two things that we do, maybe a few actually. So one is whenever we have a meeting, a certain specific type of meeting, we have a printout. We don't print out a lot, but this is one thing that we found works better. We also send an email, and it lets them know who is the next person in kind of their process. Or it actually comes from that person introduced and says, hey, I'm looking forward to our next meeting. And then on this page, it also says like what to expect. So we always have a page on what's the next step and what they should know. The other aspect is we have a meeting for each phase to introduce the new employee or new teammate that's going to be part of it. And we just clearly let them know they are your new contact. And so I don't know that it's ever been an issue where they want to go back to someone else. sometimes I do know that there might be a question that they ask the project manager, and then they say, hey, let me ask the designer.
Yeah,
And so then the designer might either reach right back out to the homeowner, or they relay it to the project manager, just depending on what is better for the customer. So I would say a little bit is documentation, literal, like giving it to them, and then emails, and then making sure there's a meeting so there's a nice handoff, and then making it clear like this is the person that's in charge. And I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not in the loop, where they might reach out to the designer sometimes because maybe they're in the middle of the project and they just have a quick question. And I would imagine our designer just takes care of that question real quick. It's not a big deal. But I
sure.
do know that our designer is slightly involved even once it starts, just because she cares a lot and just wants to make sure everything is going well.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, I'm sure it's giving that much more confidence to the homeowner that, you're just not, a fly by night contractors. You're going to take that initial check and run. Like there's a whole team, that's supporting this entire initiative, and so, I think it's, you're definitely showing up in strength, with those numbers and with having, those people kind of behind the brand that, you're here to help them get this project done to completion. And they're going to have someone there along the way at every stage. It seems like a great strategy for for having a great successful project for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that can be a challenge. So earlier I was saying, oh, it's so great to have each person in their own stage, but if it's not done correctly with the homeowner, it could kind of make it seem like you're being passed off too often.
Yeah,
So that isn't an issue for us. And then one thing about a lot of our reviews is they actually mention the employees of who it is. So I think in the last 4 years, we've gotten over 100 five-star reviews. We only have one bad review. It's from somebody who we've never even spoken to.
yeah,
It's
that's
funny how that
frustrating.
works out, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
okay. But I think that's part of it, is that's so important to them. And that's a great question they ask, because when you look at the reviews, that's what they're talking about. It's obviously that they love the remodel, but it's they respected my house, they kept it clean, I enjoyed working next side to them, or these little stories that they bring up about something that made them happy. And it's
yeah,
very employee focused. And then we also make sure that our office manager emails any review that we get to the entire team. And that really helps with like employee morale, and especially if your name is on there.
mhm.
It's just another little appreciation. Um, and it's
Absolutely.
easy for us to do. We just screenshot the review and then email it. So it's kind of a small, quick win.
Yeah, that's huge. We actually just recently, so I'm not sure if you're coming out to Job Trade Connect, our user conference, but we do a big kind of tour of our office, and so all over our office we've got all these dashboards, kind of for sales, for customer success, et cetera. And so one of the things, one of the big initiatives that we rolled out this year was to recognize and focus on all of those customer reviews, and so we have a leaderboard now of showing kind of all the customer success managers and how many 5-star reviews they've gotten. And we actually even just implemented a where every so many 5-star reviews they get an additional bonus, just again to say thank you. Like, and we found that that's like really, I mean, they already were going above and beyond and really trying to take care of the customers, but it gives them that much more incentive to know that like every single customer that comes in that you're going to work with, like you got to make sure that you're setting that that tone from the very beginning, that like we will do whatever it takes to help make this as successful as possible, to be that support resource for you, to help you learn, get up to speed. And so I think those reviews, they're tremendously valuable from the company standpoint, because they're creating that awareness, they're helping other people find you and learn about you. And I love that you do the same, kind of where you recognize those employees and you share it out to the team. It's really been a huge thing for us as well. And it's just such a best practice. A lot of times people don't, I feel like they go all the way through and they do a great job, but then they don't ask for the review. They don't ask for the testimonial. Try to again think about from a marketing standpoint, how can you leverage this amazing job and this great customer experience that you just delivered, to help you keep growing your business. And so, having a system or process in place to do that. Obviously we've integrated with Nice Job, which is one of the integrations that, can be a great way to do it. But, mean, at the end of the day, just like everybody, like, have an email template, have, some sort of a part of your process to make sure at the end of every job you follow up and you ask for that review. It's a very simple thing that, almost, all the time, as long as they had a good experience, the customer's willing to do it for you.
Right.
I think
Absolutely.
another, interesting kind of point you brought up is, I think back about, really even some of the beginning days of when I started, kind of getting into the construction space. I was working with, one of my landscaper, and, she did phenomenal work, like just very, very talented, did a great job, kind of with, installing the hardscaping, doing the landscaping, kind of, very professional, and it was all about like focusing on that customer experience. A lot of times, you can have people who do great work, but they don't always, also think about the customer experience, and it's so important that, that customer, that homeowner has that great experience. And that's what sounds like your process is very well designed and thought through at every step of the way to make sure that that experience, that customer, is, understands where they're at. They understand what the next steps are going to be. They've got transparency. Like that's exactly what it takes to have a great job, as giving you the best chance for flawless execution as possible. And then if something does come up, again, you've already got that relationship where you can bring that up in a way that, hey, look, we had this unforeseen circumstance, but, here's how we're going to handle it. And don't worry, we got it. We're here for you. I think that's, really, really very important that, contractors understand it's not just about, getting this, this thing built or that thing, installed. It's the whole picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something that is kind of tough too, because how do I word this? There might be books out there, but it's not something that's just as easy to do when you're in the trades. It's, you had somebody who mentored you and you know exactly how to build something usually to look perfect, or depending on scenarios and all that. But for this side that you're talking about, that's not as easy to learn, I don't feel like.
Yeah.
One thing that we did, and this is going to sound extremely elementary, so if apologies to anyone who doesn't like this, but we just wrote out what are all the issues. Like, okay, people hate when their house is dirty. People don't like when you don't knock before walking to their house. I don't know, I just made that one up. I don't know that that happens often, but so we just created all these different things that are all these like issues that people have. And then we said, okay, what was the first one I mentioned? Clean house. So we make sure we use zip walls. We use like one of the best air filters there is. And we do a few other things like runners and whatnot. And
Yeah.
none of it's like rocket science. We just wanted to make sure, okay, what are all the issues? And then when a new issue comes up, then we make sure that we add that to kind of like our list of all the different things. So it's always just constantly trying to improve and not having the, what's the mentality I would call it? Like it just is what it is. Like, oh, your
Yeah.
house is just going to be dirty. Like just deal with it. Some of that is true, but there are things that we can do on every single job to ensure that it makes the customer experience as best as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. The attention to detail and the forethought, that you have, and to know that, like, again, you don't have to know every single issue today, and as new one comes up, you can continually evolve, and add to it and keep improving. I mean, that focus on continual improvement is just coming through, very, very clear here for you guys. I mean, it's a great thing to, again, like document, what are, your standard operating procedures, what is, your plan for sales, and how are we going to handle these different situations, and kind of like, you very clearly have it very well, understood and documented there. And I think, to the extent that we can encourage others who may not have yet stopped, to create their playbook and to create, those processes and procedures and all that documentation, like it's so helpful. And even if you think you've got it in your head, just being able to write it down, that's going to like enable you as you grow the business, as you bring on new employees, as you bring on, new partners, whoever it may be. Like you have that starting place, that shared, kind of document, that collaborative thing where you can continually build and improve, so, kudos to you guys for already having that in there.
Thank you.
I'm,
Appreciate that.
I'm curious. I mean, what would you say has been like the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome here? Like, obviously not, kind of coming, directly, from previous construction businesses, things like that? Like, what has there been anything that's just like was very shocking, or something that like you just felt like you've really had to work extra hard to overcome?
Yeah, there's probably a lot. To keep it as concise as I can, one would probably be just for myself. I didn't come from the contracting world, so I worked at Home Depot through college for 3 years, so I know an okay amount of that type of stuff at that time. And I knew a little bit about plumbing, electrical, but not construction or construction business. So even though my parents were always self-employed and I owned a small other side business, that was probably a huge challenge for me. Another one would be homeowner expectations. So as anyone that does construction or works inside a person's home, every homeowner can have completely different expectations. It's not their fault. They could have remodeled 5 times before, and it could be 5 to 10 different ways. And so what we realized was to have the paper that I already brought up. We also have a web page for 2 different phases. So when someone signs our feasibility planning design agreement, they get a web page, and it's quite long, unfortunately, and there's a video to help out. But it pretty much is like, hey, here's what to expect, and it outlines almost everything. I mean, it's long, and obviously it's not great that it's long, but we have all that there. And then we can also use it in a way that is polite, saying something like, well, you have this concern, but remember, we did show you this documentation. It allows the teammate, the employee, to um, have a little bit more of a solid ground to work with, where the homeowner doesn't think they're just making it up.
Yeah.
And not that we've ever had that problem that I can think of, but it's one of those things where I know if someone's in my house and I ask them a question or I have a concern and they just say something, it's like, well, is that really the answer? Where if we
Yeah.
have a document, it's like, hey, we sent that to you a month ago. This is obviously the answer, right? There's no question. It's in writing, even if it's not like the contract part. And we try to make it a little bit more fun, this long web page. And then same with construction. So a lot of the concerns with like, well, is my house going to be dirty? And does this happen? All those FAQs and other issues that someone might have, we just put it all into this document. So even things that you wouldn't think you'd put into a document, we just put it in there. Like, let's just be upfront about everything.
Yeah.
And it's helped out dramatically. And then what we do is we have an email sequence that hits on the top ones for the design phase. So if I think it's like 6 emails. So if there's like 6 things that we really want them to know, we send them that page. And then we also send them an email once a day that explains like the main reason why this is so important and why it benefits them.
Nice.
So homeowner expectations, that would be one. Um, Another challenge I would say, it's probably all too common, not just in remodeling, but everywhere, is hiring and training. So with that one, Ben and I both come from a few companies actually that were really big in culture. And that was something that we wanted. All three of us wanted that from day one. So we worked really hard at that. But that's always an issue. It's always a challenge with training people and hiring and all of that stuff. We could do a whole call just on that alone. We
Yeah.
have a really cool process for how we find virtual assistants, like international employees. Um, and so what we found was we don't like to micromanage. It's just not our style. And we give just enough autonomy to where people love their job. We make sure we pay them well, obviously. And we just look for people at the top of their game. I know this all seems simple, but finding a process like how we do that was what really made a big difference. So, for example, I mentioned we just hired a new designer. About the third step in this process is we have the designer come to my house, and they actually do the exact same meeting that they would normally do. And they do it on my kitchen and my bathroom, and they have to create renderings. So we get to see their technical skills. We make changes on the fly. We ask them questions. We act like we don't know what's going on. We do all kinds of fun stuff in an environment that's much better than like an interview process. And we have the exact same scope of work we've used for 4 years. So whenever we have another designer we need to get, it's just I send them a link to this large document that has everything that they need. I don't have to keep
Yeah.
telling them here's what's going to happen. I just copy paste. I even have the email template. You mentioned email templates. So
Yeah.
it's just systematizing it. So that helped us out a lot with being able to hire good employees by being able to, how do I say this? filter out people that may not be a good fit from the start.
Yeah, man, that is great advice right there. And it's so important that, you build the right team. And at the end of the day, like, as an owner, like, you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to
Mhm.
solve every single problem. You got to build a
Yeah.
great team of people around you who together you can come up with the right solutions. I can't stress the importance of that enough. I mean, at the end of the day, Job Trade is here because of our team.
Yeah.
It's not, just one person. It's an entire team. And that, that as you grow your business, like, you can't just go at it alone forever. Like, you got to be able to trust others, and finding the right people will help you, move forward and keep building the business.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, look, Jeremy, you've shared a tremendous amount of knowledge here. I'm curious, like, I mean, and if you're open to sharing kind of at what scale, the business is at, because obviously you sounds like you got a pretty deep bench of people. Obviously, I understand payroll can be expensive. But where do you see the business going? Like, what are the goals, for you guys? Like, where do you want to see, the company in, 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, I would say in, let's say, roughly 5 years, I'd like to be to the point where I'm not involved, and not from the standpoint I don't like my job. I'm a workaholic. But the fact that I want to be the least valuable employee in our company. I joke with my partner a couple times a year about this. Um, and then that means that we have a team that can handle everything. So if I want to go on vacation for a couple weeks, I don't have to check my email every 20 minutes. So that would be a big one, is essentially stepping back from the business. And I also want that for both my business partners. The three of us like working, so none of us are thinking we want to go sit on a beach.
Oh,
My brain doesn't work that well as it is. I have
same
a
here.
terrible memory. I've got ADHD. I'm dyslexic, and my memory is terrible. So I know if I retire, I got a year or two, and then I'm not even going to know who I am. So working is going to happen regardless. But anyways, that would be the biggest goal, because that means that all the other things are working. Like, you can't have that correctly unless your employees are happy. They're essentially either self-motivated, or we have somebody who's helping with that. Obviously, customers have to be happy for this all to work out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the top of the mountain type of thing. And that would probably be some advice I would give to anyone who um, might be like me, that has a little bit of a control freak in them. You want to pass off responsibility as soon as you can, even if they're not perfect. Um, if you're a perfectionist like I tend to be, if they can do it at 80 to 90% of what you can, and then you coach them a little bit more, that amount of time that you save that you can now work on your business instead of in it, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I've got the same ADHD, dyslexia. Like, I'm right there with you. Completely understand. It's interesting that, again, having the right team of people around you can make all the difference in the
Yeah.
world. And sounds like you guys are really well on your way, to creating a great company. And you've already done it, but it's exciting to just kind of think about how you'll be able to continue growing, to be able to make even more of an impact on your community and, all the people, in Phoenix there. I'm curious, just as we wrap up, I mean, what's like, one or, a couple of pieces of advice, like, what do you wish you would have known, when you started this thing that, that you've now learned, and that you think it might help others who, whether they're still on the tools, looking to start up their own thing, or maybe earlier on, trying to get to the point, where they're able to have a team of, 10 or plus people, like, what do you wish you would have known?
One thing that I think would be quite helpful for anyone in any of those situations is to increase your skill sets. So if you're really good at, I'm just going to make this up, carpentry, and you want to be a business owner, well, what's the next step? It could be a million different things. What could you learn next? It could be so many different things. And so you just pick something. Maybe it's you want to learn more about Google Ads or social media or a website or whatever it may be. Um, Another one would be, I would highly recommend learning about virtual assistants. We're able to pay people enough to where they can take care of like other family members, so like parents, siblings. So we're really helping them out, but it's a dramatic reduction in cost for us. Um, and it gives the homeowner so much more than what we normally would be able to do for them. So
Yeah.
I would say I would consider that, because no matter what stage you're in, if let's say it's just you and you need to hire someone for something, if it can be done online, let's say you're estimating, they could do your estimating in job trend for you. There's just so much that they can do. Like when we were first getting started, we had our social media VA. One of the first ones, actually, our first one was estimator, but then the next one was a design or social media person. And it was amazing what they were able to accomplish for us just by being able to drum up business that didn't cost anything. So the only cost was his salary. So that would be another thing that I would recommend. It's so out there, virtual assistants and construction, but it's something that so many companies have been taking advantage of for so long. And a lot of the groups I'm in, you hear them say things like, "Oh, you can't have an estimator that does it. You can't have it." It's like we've had 3 estimators in 5.5 years, and they all do a great job. And if I ever need a second one or a third one or whatever, I already have the documentation. It's just
Yeah.
you hire them, here's your documentation, and within a couple weeks they know how to do it, and I don't have to be that involved. So it's actually one of the easiest employees you'll ever hire, even though it seems like it would be the opposite. Granted, you do have to have the documentation, as you were talking about earlier. So yeah, I would say that would be a few things that I wish I knew more when we first started, and that I think would actually have the most impact on someone, regardless of what stage they're in.
Yeah, that is all very, very solid advice. Can continue to improve your skill set, continue to learn, grow, being able to leverage, virtual assistants. Again, it's about working smarter, not harder. We
Yeah.
we have a virtual assistant that we use here. We've had for years. Our team is able to, assign him projects. You send it to him at the end of the day. When you come back the next day, it's done. It's phenomenal to be able to have that turnaround. And I mean, again, they're making a great, wage relative to where they're living and what they're doing. We're getting a phenomenal, very affordable, service, and it works well for everyone. So definitely, learning to tap into that. It sounds like you got a whole process going through that, which I will share. It can be, when we first put out an ad, for our VA, like, I mean, we had like, hundreds of applicants, like just like literally immediately. And so we had to develop basically like a test, kind of like an exercise that we wanted them
Mhm.
to go through. Like we were looking for someone who could, take a bunch of, raw data in an Excel sheet and format it and dedupe it and, kind of make all these manipulations. And so we created this, the spreadsheet, and we sent it to him. We said, hey, here's all the instructions. We want you to time yourself and, let us know how long you spent on it and send it back to us. And so, that helped us to really then look at the quality as well as take into account the time. And ultimately, we were able to make, the select someone. It actually turned out the very first person that even did the exercise was the one that we went with. But, again, we looked through, probably over 100 of them.
Yeah.
So it's, just kind of really thinking through that. And I mean, I would also echo, to your point about making sure that you build the right team, like, hire slowly, fire quickly. You got to take the time, to make sure that you're understanding who you're bringing on. Take much more time than you think you need to get to know that person. Make sure that they understand your expectations. They understand the role. That is what it takes. And, Jeremy, I mean, you guys have clearly built a great team there of people who, understand what, your vision is and what your mission and how you're going to, deliver that exceptional customer experience every time. And so, to those out there listening, like, take that time to make sure that you have a really good process for recruiting and building the right team. At the end of the day, like, I think that is single-handedly, the most important job that I have as the CEO of JobTread, is to make sure, that we get the right team around the table who shares our passion, understands the vision, wants to be part of this mission to, make JobTread the best that it can be. And so, taking that time to do that, it is what it takes to build a business, like Jeremy and his partners have done with Phoenix Home Remodeling. You can do it too. You just got to really take that time to plan it out, document your processes, implement it, and know that it might not be perfect. You may make mistakes. You will make mistakes. Mistakes are okay. As long as you learn from them and you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over, like it's a growth exercise. It's continual improvement. And that's how you build a very scalable and successful business. Jeremy, we appreciate you taking the time, to share your experiences, to share these lessons with our audience out there, because you guys are leading by example. You're doing a great job, and I really appreciate you sharing all this today, and I look forward to hopefully in 5 years we see you're sitting back, not doing too much, but the business is thriving and growing. And I don't know, maybe we'll go find a beach to have have a drink or two on, and see how how involved or not involved we can be. I think I share the sentiment that I don't know what I would do if I wasn't working, but it's exciting though to be able to know that you've built something great that will be able to kind of go on with or without your daily involvement every single day. But
absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe one of the job trend conferences is actually at the beach, or somewhere that's close to a beach.
Could be. We'll see. Depends on how much, if they keep growing like they're growing now, we may have to look at that one day.
There we go. That sounds good.
Thanks again, Jeremy, for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And, look forward to, watching you guys keep growing and doing good work.
Thanks, Eric. It was great being on here.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.